Isn't it interesting that most people that think they're awake haven't even had their coffee yet? This is The Issue, and I am the Ghetto Man. Today's issue, red flag laws. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Today we're faced with a constitutional crisis. Red flag laws. Or should I say, communist red flag laws. Now, anyone that understands the history of the United States and our constitutional system of checks and balances knows that the United States of America is already a communist nation and has been for over 60 years. We practice all 10 planks of communism, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Now, The Issue has produced a series of videos on the establishment of communism in the United States and how all 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto have been implemented and are practiced in the United States today, and how our criminal government is using communism to destroy the U.S. Constitution. The Issue has also produced a series of videos on the Bill of Rights as well. The videos are going to be posted in the comment section below. Okay, the only part of communism that hasn't been established at this point is the abolition of free speech and gun confiscation, which is underway as I present this information today. Unconstitutional fascist corporations working hand in hand with Congress, like Google, Twitter, Facebook, and other corporations just like them, are attacking the First Amendment by censoring the free speech of U.S. citizens, as well as attacking the Second Amendment with the enactment of unconstitutional gun laws and now unconstitutional red flag laws. Now, red flag laws violate the entire Bill of Rights, from free speech to due process of law. None dare talk about them in fear that they may be targeted as a potential danger to society. The presumption of innocence, due process of law, the proof of criminal behavior, the right to be charged with a crime, unlawful search and seizure, the right to a trial by jury, the right to counsel for your defense, the right to confront your accusers, the right to examine and cross-examine witnesses against you, the right to present evidence on your behalf, the right to life, liberty, and property, all guaranteed and protected by the Bill of Rights, is thrown out the window ex parte. An ex parte judicial proceeding is one where the opposing party has not received notice, nor are they present. And this is all done under the guise of crimes pretended, a crime that you might commit in the future, whatever that is, as opposed to being charged with a crime that has actually been committed. We don't know what the future crime might be, but we're going to deny you due process of law and seize your life, liberty, and property anyway. We'll just fill in the blanks later. Already, this has been proven fatal to anyone that opposes and or demands that a police officer present a lawful constitutional Fourth Amendment search and seizure warrant. Just questioning their actions is considered a threat to government authority and will get you murdered. You see, the job of all of our government servants is to preserve and protect our personal liberties, not violate them. All government servants have voluntarily taken an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. In a case called United States versus Cruikshank, 92 U.S. 542, the court said the right to keep and bear arms exists independent of the Constitution or the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment has no other effect than to restrict the powers of the national government. We, the people, are responsible for the enforcement of the U.S. Constitution, not the courts or any other government institution for that matter. That is precisely the reason that we, the people, have permanently retained our right to keep and bear arms. There is no greater danger to personal liberty than the awesome force of government, any government. That's why the very core of our constitutional system of checks and balances is the Second Amendment. If the words of the U.S. Constitution are to be elevated to the highest position, then we the people must live and breathe those words each and every day and not tolerate the mindless rhetoric of some traitorous public servant. No public servant should ever be trusted to honor their oath of office. It is our job to make sure our public servants honor their oath of office. All, and I mean it, all responsibility in enforcing the law lies in we the people. If this country falls, we only have ourselves to blame. Red flag laws are unconstitutional, period. We don't need the courts or any other government institution to educate us on the subject. After all, it is we the people that are the last word on the subject, not government. We the people are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who would pervert the Constitution. Abraham Lincoln. It is an inalienable right to ignore an unconstitutional law, and all gun laws are unconstitutional. Every single one of them shall not be infringed. It's the law. It is unconstitutional, as well as an act of treason, for Congress to even talk about creating gun laws, let alone passing them. Nobody is bound to obey an unconstitutional law, period. Now, gun control advocates are nothing more than domestic enemies. That's why we need guns, to protect our life, liberty, and property, and the Republic from domestic enemies. Passing an unconstitutional gun law has no effect on our right to keep and bear arms. It only validates it. It also validates our constitutional duty to use firearms in defense of the Republic from those who would attempt to overthrow it. Now, the Bill of Rights did not add anything to the U.S. Constitution. It just confirmed and clarified that which was already there, that the U.S. Constitution, as originally ratified, already prohibited the federal government from any powers not specifically delegated to it. If the U.S. Constitution did not specifically delegate a power to the federal government, then the federal government does not have that power. Any law passed to the contrary is null and void. End of story. The 10th Amendment clarifies and confirms this fact, and this stands true for the entire Bill of Rights as well. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. That's the 10th Amendment, United States Constitution. Now, I've done some videos on that so you can see exactly how that works. Now, the last time I looked, there has been no power delegated to the U.S. government to pass any gun laws. Period. See, the Bill of Rights is nothing more than a restriction on the federal government, not we the people. The rights enumerated in the Bill of Rights were not created by the Bill of Rights, nor are they dependent upon the U.S. Constitution for their existence. All federal public servants take an oath to uphold and defend the Bill of Rights from all enemies, foreign and domestic. It is a violation of that oath. It is perjury. It is treason for a public servant to even suggest that the Bill of Rights be amended and or repealed. That's the law. Every citizen in this nation has a right to own a firearm and to own a firearm, quote, of the kind in common usage at the time, unquote. The United States Supreme Court has made this fact abundantly clear. Quote, all males physically capable of acting in concert for the common defense, and further that ordinarily when called for service, these men were expected to appear bearing arms supplied by themselves, their own property, arms that they purchased with their own money, and of the kind in common usage at the time. Couldn't be any clearer than that. This comes from a case called United States of America versus Miller. can be found in 307 U.S. 174. Now, the court is referring to the militia here. An inalienable right can only be relinquished by the person owning that right and or by due process of law. Red flag laws violate all due process of law. If the government attempts to strip a person of a constitutionally protected right, it is at that moment that the right in question must be exercised, and exercised by the belligerent claimant in person, and violently if necessary, in order to retain that right. The right to keep and bear arms is not open for debate. When government says that they are coming for your guns, it only validates our right to use them. All gun control laws are unconstitutional. Period. As I stated before, the Bill of Rights is nothing more than a list of, quote, permanent restrictions, unquote, placed on the government, protecting the inalienable rights of the people sealed by an oath of office. The United States Constitution, Article 6, Clause 3, quote, the senators and representatives before mentioned and the members of the several states' legislators and all executive and judicial officers both of the United States and of the several states shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification in any office or public trust under the United States. Everyone that is elected, regardless of their political persuasion, must take an oath to uphold and defend the U.S. Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Once they take that oath, they are no longer bound by their political party. They are bound by that oath. They are no longer a Democrat, a Republican, socialist, a communist, independent, or any other political persuasion. They are all constitutionalists by contract. From that point forward, they were forbidden by the law of perjury and the law of treason from ever advancing any political agenda that is contrary to the United States Constitution. We the people did not grant our public servants with the authority to pass laws that curtail our inalienable rights. We granted those servants only the authority to protect and expand on those rights. A free society tolerates the rights of every individual to live his or her life as they wish, providing that they do not violate the life, liberty, or property of another person in the process. Samuel Adams said, quote, and that the said Constitution be never construed to authorize Congress to infringe the just liberty of the press or the rights of conscience, or to prevent the people of the United States who are peaceful citizens from keeping their own arms, or to raise standing armies unless necessary for the defense of the United States or of some one or more of them, or to prevent the people from petitioning in a peaceful and orderly manner the federal legislature for a redress of grievances, or to subject the people to unreasonable searches and seizures of their persons, papers, and possessions. And this comes from Samuel Adams' debate of Massachusetts Convention of 1788. See, the Bill of Rights cannot be touched for any reason. They are inalienable rights. Government can neither create them nor take them away without due process of law. As I stated earlier, tampering with the first 10 amendments of the United States Constitution is an act of treason. Quote, decency, security, and liberty alike demand that government officials shall be subject to the same rules of conduct that are commands to the citizen. In a government of laws, existence of the government will be imperiled if it fails to observe the law scrupulously. Our government is the potent, the omnipresent teacher. For good or for ill, it teaches the whole people by its example. Crime is contagious. If the government becomes a lawbreaker, it breeds contempt for law. It invites every man to become a law unto himself. It invites anarchy. That comes from a case called Olmsted versus U.S. Can be found at 277 U.S. 485. In reality, the general misconception is that any statute passed by the legislator bearing the appearance of a law constitutes the law of the land. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and any statute to be valid must be in agreement. It is impossible for a law which violates the Constitution to be valid. This is succinctly stated as follows, quote, all laws which are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void, unquote. Marbury versus Madison, 5 U.S. 2nd C-R-A-N-C-H, I think it's Cranch, 137. It's an 1803 case. In fact, it was the very first case that came out of the Supreme Court that gave judicial review. Quote, when rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rulemaking or legislation which would abrogate them, unquote. And that comes from a case called Miranda versus Arizona, 384 U.S. 436. Quote, an unconstitutional act is not law. It confers no rights. It imposes no duties, affords no protection. It creates no office. It is in legal contemplation as inoperative as though it had never been passed, unquote. Norton versus Shelby County, 118 U.S. 425. Quote, the general rule is that an unconstitutional statute, though having the form and name of law, is in reality no law, but is wholly void and ineffective for any purpose, since constitutionally dates from the time of its enactment and not merely from the date of the decision so branding it. No one is bound to obey an unconstitutional law, and no courts are bound to enforce it. And that comes from 16th American Jurisprudence, 2nd edition, section 177. Sheriffs and other members of the executive branch of government take an oath to uphold and defend the United States Constitution. It is a violation of that oath for any sheriff or any police officer to carry out a red flag order. They all know that the red flag laws are clearly unconstitutional. They all know that red flag laws circumvent state and federal constitutional law. They also know and understand that the executive branch of government is not bound to enforce an unconstitutional law or an unconstitutional court order. The United States of America has lost its backbone. It's become the land of the fee, home of the slave, a gigantic welfare state filled with spineless jellyfish that kiss the asses of illegitimate, corrupt communist politicians passing unconstitutional laws and corrupt courts that uphold them. This has got to stop now. Remember, a gun can be used in an assault. It can also be used to defend against an assault. But the gun itself can neither assault or defend anything on its own. The education of our fellow Americans is now in our hands, we the people. The corporate-controlled lamestream media and our public fool system, the 10th plank of the Communist Manifesto, has turned our republic into a cesspool of traitorous communist scum. Let's start acting like the sovereign citizens that we are and open the floor for real, honest, educational debate. Quote, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. The day is coming when the people will refuse to suffer no more. Just ask Benito Mussolini and his friends on how that works. Red flag laws are unconstitutional. I am the Ghetto Man. Thank you for watching. If you're politically correct, then you're legally wrong. And if you're not part of the solution, then you are the problem. Please subscribe to my BitChute channel, and please share.